What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Guides podcast. I am former player and current Devy analyst Jesse Preston, and I am joined tonight by fellow Fantasy Guides contributors Andrew Teuscher and Jacob Rhodes. Tonight, we're going to be diving into rookie quarterback rankings. What we think about these guys, I can give you a little bit of a background on where they come from, what they've been like over the last few years, and then Jacob follows college football pretty closely as well, so we thought we'd bring him on. The Rippey brothers are both indisposed tonight, so we're going to try and roll without them. Steven, of course, runs Fantasy Guides, and he trusts us. What do you think, Andrew? He's gonna give us the reins here, and even more importantly, Andrew, I'm gonna have you kind of run this thing so that you can ask us questions, and it's not just me talking about these rookies the whole time. What do you think about taking the podcast host reins for tonight?
I think you and Steve are crazy for letting me have this much power, and it will instantly go to my head with all of the buttons I can click and let pop up on the screen. So let's let it ride, embrace chaos.
And we are trying out a new streaming studio, I guess is what we'd call this virtual studio, which we really like. So hopefully you get to see us on video as well as listen to this stuff. This week, we're working on getting this stuff out as well. So without further ado, Andrew, talk to me. Where do you want to go with this stuff?
Well, we got to talk some QBs, gentlemen, because that's first and foremost the most important position in Superflex leagues, certainly, and in the real NFL. Maybe not so much one QB rankings, but as this first guy we're about to talk about, it might be a game changer in one QB leagues. But Jesse, before we even get there, I have a little segment one half before we get to segment one. Okay. Just want to ask you, with all this knowledge you have, don't go into too many specifics other than quarterback later, but what should fantasy dynasty players be expecting in this dynasty class overall? What's our wide receivers, our running backs, our wide receiver strength, our quarterback strengths, our running backs week this year? What are you seeing just overall as people can expect?
Yeah, so I put out a post, man, I don't know, it was maybe preseason, before the season had even started, either the NFL or the college season. And at that time, I really felt like this was going to be a really, really good quarterback class. And the biggest reason is NIL. These guys can choose to stay in school. They can get paid. The transfer portal is also fascinating when we start looking at these quarterbacks. And I think, Jake and I both believe there's only about 6, maybe 7 that are really that important in this draft class. All those guys transferred schools. They all played for multiple schools, which is a very new thing to think about. But what you're getting with the quarterback class specifically is the most experienced quarterback recruiting or NFL draft class that we've ever seen. We've never really seen players with this much experience at the collegiate level. Generally what you see is a guy looks really good for a couple years and then jumps into the NFL, which is kind of those top 2 guys. But the rest of the group, holy cow, the amount of starts, the amount of games played, the amount of games won. So really, really like the quarterback class. The running back class this year is weak. It's one of the weaker ones we've had over our last 3 or 4 years of starting these evaluations. It's not a great running back class. You may not see a running back go in the second round even. Maybe you see 1 or 2, but definitely no first-round running backs this year. Wide receiver, at the beginning, when I made that post, before the season started, I thought it was average. I thought it was top-heavy with Marvin Harrison. But now I am really, really excited about this year's wide receiver class. I think it's one of the better ones we've evaluated as well. So quarterbacks, really good. Running backs, wide receivers, really good. And then tight ends, there's just kind of one tight end you really need to know, in my opinion. He's going to be one of the best fantasy tight ends, I think, of all time when all's said and done. After him, it's an okay class. It's not very deep, but we have one big headliner as far as tight ends.
Mm-hmm. Good to hear. And Jacob, you got to show off that shirt real quick. Do you think there's one running back this year that people might maybe be excited for?
I don't think they're going to be excited for him, but I think they should. No, there's a big, this running back class, it's a lot of big, beefy guys. It's a lot unlike last year where we saw Devon Achane and Jahmyr Gibbs, those near sub 200-pound guys that exploded onto the fantasy scene. These are big, beefy guys coming into the NFL, and they're going to be good complements in a bunch of different running back rooms, but there's not any that really jump off the tape to you when you watch them. So it'll be interesting. There's going to be one or two guys that come out of there and we're excited about come fantasy season, but landing spot is going to be really important for him.
Always important to have more solid quads, or Jesse, if you recall all the way back to a summer pod we did, obliques coming into the league. We're going to see some mass in the league, and heck, we need it. Let's get a little change up. Some guys that are a little sturdier. But just good overview gives people an idea of, man, if I'm heavy on running back on my team, then this is the draft for me because I'll just draft everywhere else. And man, if I need a running back this year, I'm trading out of the early first. So good info there. But let's get into the meat of this, all right? Quarterbacks. The strength of the class is one Jesse just told us. And let's talk about, this possibly the best player in this entire draft, as many people have him, Caleb Williams. Jesse, start with you. He's good, right?
Yeah, he's a great player. I've gone back and forth with Caleb Williams. Before the season started, I thought that he may end up being the best quarterback that I've ever evaluated and looked at. He struggled a little bit down the stretch. I think it was a very, very difficult schedule for USC. A little bit of history on Caleb Williams. He grew up in the DC area. He was a big-time recruit, and he went to Oklahoma. He ended up beating out Spencer Rattler, who was also a huge 5-star recruit at Oklahoma, with Lincoln Riley. And then when Lincoln Riley moved over to USC, he took Caleb Williams with him. And then Caleb Williams put in 2 great seasons at USC. Of course, his sophomore year, he won the Heisman Trophy. And he's electric. And he has got a set of skills that are unique to any player that we've ever looked at, basically. We know Anthony Richardson came out and really wowed people with all of the different measurables that he has, but Caleb Williams has actually put it on the tape. He's won a Heisman Trophy. I think he's faster and more agile than Anthony Richardson. So I think that the sky is the limit for this kid. If I was going to do a comp, my comp has been Patrick Mahomes, mostly because of the style of game that he plays. He's able to really throw off a platform, throw from different arm angles, throw when his body is not set. I almost have gotten to the point though, and have to hear what Jacob thinks, but really it was the Notre Dame game when he was exposed. And I started to get worried down the stretch that I don't know that this guy can just hit a third step and make a throw. He's so used to improvisation, running around, throwing all over the place. We've seen guys be successful in fantasy with that. So I really like his fantasy prospects, but I get nervous about him playing within a system. And so that kind of crept in a little late in the process. Andrew, do you have concerns with him, or where are you at with Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I'm seeing him just very similar to you, where he can do everything, and he knows he can do everything, and that almost becomes a problem at times. It's very Josh Allen-esque. We talked last pod. That's kind of who I'm comping him to, is Josh Allen, because he embraces so much of the chaos. People put Patty Mahomes comps, totally fair. Physical traits are there, all that jazz, but he just likes the chaos. He doesn't hit that 1, 2, 3 step gone that we are going to see from some of these later prospects we're going to talk about in a little bit. And Jacob, give us your thoughts, but first start off by answering this question. He's the best quarterback prospect since blank.
Trevor Lawrence. I don't think you have to go too far back. He's good. He's really good. We've seen a lot from him. This past year, like Jesse was kind of talking about, that Notre Dame game was a bit of a exposure for him. I think that whole game, though, he was just being rushed. That offensive line couldn't block anybody. It's a problem he might see when he goes and plays for the Bears. It's very possible. It's most likely where he's going to end up, and that's a team that kind of needs to booster that offensive line. So you might see similar problems there, but he can make all the plays. He can make all the throws. I think the decision-making is going to improve. It does worry me a bit, though, is his past year wasn't as good as the year before. I think teams got to know him a little bit more. He was thrown different looks and different systems, and that's kind of what Al Golden did to him in that Indy game, and that's where all those interceptions came from and just poor decisions. But he's going to learn. He's young. He's got so much talent, though. He's a can't miss prospect. He's going to go first in the draft. I think his odds are around -800 or -900 right now to go first overall. So he's a lock to go in that one spot. for all intents and purposes the Bears. He's got some weapons there. They're going to add more weapons. There's no way they don't improve the offensive line. They've got all the cap space in the world. So I think he's going to be set up for success in the NFL. He's got a really high fantasy ceiling. He can run the ball. He can make all the throws like we were saying. So I'm excited for him. He's got a huge ceiling in the league, and I can't wait to see him play.
Yeah, I mean, to put a fantasy bow on this discussion, I mean, what's the worst case scenario? He's bad at throwing, so that dude runs. Go for it. Go do it. I know it's going to be terrible for development, and it's not good for real life NFL, but dude, just take off and run if you don't like what you see. Don't be Trevor Lawrence. Don't be Justin Herbert. These guys who are so responsible and want to run an offense, just take off. Have fun. Score me points. Yeah. Jalen Hurts, 15 touchdowns. Just do that.
Jesse, I feel like his floor is kind of like Kyler Murray, what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
With the shiftiness and the way that he's kind of in just a bad situation, but he's still elite for fantasy at times. So,
absolutely.
Feels like the floor.
Comes from the same system. You know, that system is a very simplified offensive system that Lincoln Riley runs, and he just keeps raking in Heisman Trophy quarterbacks with it. Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield have had very varied success, but yeah, it's a very similar skill set. He's a little bigger though, right? So it's even when you look at, you know, guys like Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields that have been successful running the ball. Caleb Williams, he's a little more like Justin Fields. He's got some weight to him, so I do think that he'll hold up. Really good wiggle. Casey likes it when I talk about wiggle, and
he's got it.
He's special in that area for sure.
I got a feeling for Casey here. You can't be talking about another man's wiggle like that in the pod. Now we got face test. I don't know if we're ready for wiggle test, although we do have cameras now.
Yeah, face test. You know, Caleb Williams is fine. He's right in that zone of proximal development where, you know, he's going to be good. He's going to be fine with that face. We'll get to some of these other faces later on that'll get a little more. I think we got a little more debate. Now, I also, guys, it's tough for me. I am not a face test connoisseur the way that Casey is. I basically use Casey for the face test, but he's told me some things that I can tell you guys, so I'll try and convey those in his absence. If you are new to the pod, the face test is only for quarterbacks, and it's basically Jimmy Garoppolo, where you're flying way too close to the sun. You're so good looking,
Sam Hartman,
that you won't be good. Yeah, we'll get to Sam Hartman later in the pod for sure. Yeah. And then, you know, those guys in the middle that they're fine. They're good looking guys, look like they can lead a team, end up being successful NFL players. And then, you know, according to him, bad looking guys generally aren't great NFL quarterbacks. So Kyle Orton, I think that would maybe be our low end.
Carson back next year. That's the low end. That guy.
You want your big uglies at tight end. I mean, just Google a picture of George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson. Travis Kelce is the exception that proves the rule. All right. I mean, that dude's got Taylor, and that's a distraction. Honestly, it's an issue. So you want these big uglies where it comes to time to hit him. But I mean, honestly, another guy, I don't think that's failing any sort of face test. I mean, right, probably in that sweet spot is the guy we got at number 2. Not looking so great in that picture, a little Eli Manning freakout face. Drake May, UNC quarterback. What are you guys thinking here? Start with you there, Jacob. Let you get the first thoughts in.
I really like Drake May. He's not my second quarterback on the board. Actually, we'll get to that later. But he is big. He's physical, and he is not afraid to throw his body out there. He's very Josh Allen the way he likes to run the ball. He can make throws at all 3 levels. He's going to make plays, but he is a physical runner when he takes off, and he does like to make those plays. He will extend plays a lot like Caleb Williams will, to a fault sometimes. And if you watch some film on him, he's poor when he's blitzed. He had some issues with the blitz this past year in North Carolina, which is going to be an issue at the next level, but I think it's things he can clean up. Because again, he's got that arm talent that you want to see. And it's another guy that he's projected to go 2nd overall, 3rd overall, 4th overall right now. So he's going to be drafted in that top 5. He's going to have the capital that you want to see from a quarterback. And he's got mobility. So for fantasy purposes, he's exciting. Wherever he lands, he's going to be able to take off and move.
Yeah, Jesse, 2 questions for you to lead you in. One is UNC powder blue, good, bad, yay, nay? And secondly, how far off is this guy from Caleb Williams? Because we're going to see over this offseason, people are going to do anything they can to not be bored and putting Caleb Williams one. So if someone were to have Drake May over Caleb Williams, how ridiculous would that be?
So big fan of the powder blue. I think it's tough. It's tough to beat the North Carolina, everything they got going on. That is a good look. So I'll start with that. A little bit of history on Drake May before I kind of jump into what I think of him and where he could be in that 1-2 and all of that. He's a local kid. He's from North Carolina, really, really highly recruited, chose to stay home. And then he chose to stay in North Carolina, even as NIL offers were coming in this past season. He chose to stay with the team he was at. I think he knew that he wasn't going to be going to the, into the college football playoff or anything like that, but he stayed true to them. He's a big guy. He has a great frame, 6'4", 230, and he can move. His older brothers also went to North Carolina. One of them won a national championship as a basketball player, and Drake May was actually a very, very good basketball player as well. So that athleticism is there, and I think that that's what makes him very close to Caleb Williams, really. I think that he can play a little bit more within a system. He can hit that back leg and throw. He has a very, very tight, quick release, which I think people are going to love. And he throws over the top too. So for a 6'4", 230-pound guy that throws over the top and it has a quick release, we can do stuff with that in the NFL, right? So he's kind of, I think he's a little bit of a Trevor Lawrence comp. I wouldn't put him in the same category, but I think that's kind of the comp. That would be kind of the pedigree and the way he played in college. That's how I'd compare him. And I think he's close. I think that Caleb Williams is just such a freak. At this point, if you're doing a fantasy, a super flex fantasy, or if you are in the real NFL, I think he's the clear number one. But Drake May is not far off. I think he's what makes this class strong, is that you got a really good second option as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard not to look good, like you said, in those baby blues. I'm from the St. Louis area, and I get a lot of grief from my friends from Kansas City that the Cardinals don't deserve to be wearing these powder blues. And why restrict it? Why take away the love? It looks so good. Get more of it. So, yeah, I agree with you. Drake May, again, rushing upside. That's what's so exciting about all of these guys. Trevor Lawrence, he rushed in college. We're not seeing that translate a ton into the NFL. But Drake May, it almost to a fault, his instinct is to scramble. He's decisive with it. So again, if you take Drake May with one of your top picks, it's going to at least have rushing upside to go with it, as well as he likes to take a deep shot. I saw him take a step down this last year, at least statistically. I'll throw those up there on the screen. Jesse, I'm just led to believe it's likely because of a step down in offensive, weapons around him. I know Josh Downs is on my Colts. Anthony Richardson right there had the honors of throwing to that man. And it's got to be hard to replace because he stopped going over the middle of the field where you need a guy you can trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Downs. I think that also losing Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator at North Carolina, he moved to Wisconsin in the offseason.
Oh, that sounds like an L. Why would you go to Wisconsin? It's so much nicer there in UNC.
I think he got, well, as you guys may or may not know, the Big Ten is an upgrade from the ACC. It just is. They are making, they're kind of getting to the point where we may have to start calling it the Big Two. The Big Ten, we used to call it the Power Five, and now it's kind of the Power Two. And then there's two other leagues, and then everybody else, but losing Phil Longo, Phil Longo was there making Sam Howell look really good for a bunch of years too. I think that affected him a little bit. It was a difficult schedule and lost weapons, but I didn't see, like, Caleb Williams, I think, kind of plateaued. I didn't really see a plateau with Drake May. I feel like he was still doing a great job with decision making and where he was throwing the ball, and it just didn't have the surrounding cast that he did before. But like I said, he had the option. He could have went to Alabama, and got paid millions of dollars to go play for the Crimson Tide, and he stayed at North Carolina, and I think we got to respect that decision too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the young man can sling it. I think you just are going to have great options there in your top 3 picks of your dynasty draft. Even though Casey's out here trying to talk trash and Steve's out here trying to talk trash, get me to move off my top 3 pick. It's not happening, people. I'm keeping that thing. But there's still a reason why some people are going to move off a top 3 pick. And you might not be tearing down at all, because this next guy we have to talk about, Jaden Daniels, he won the Heisman. He might be right there. And if we're talking rushing upside, if y'all just saw Lamar win a MVP this last season, this dude can do everything Lamar can do physically. Am I wrong, Jesse?
No, that's my comp. Lamar Jackson is my comp. He's skinny. So the red flag is he's thin. But the red
I
flag,
think this 210 is a lie. I do not believe that 210.
No, he's 185 pounds or something.
Mhm.
I mean, he's thin, and that is a red flag. We saw, Bryce Young. We were kind of like, who do we comp with somebody this thin coming out? Background on Jaden Daniels, another transfer. He went to Arizona State. He started right away. So really nice low breakout age. Looked really good even as a freshman there, even though, again, back then, very skinny, even skinnier. You didn't really know he was such a good runner until later in his career. And I was actually kind of surprised he chose to go back to LSU this past year. What a great decision, because I think he would have been a middle of the pack draft pick, maybe coming out of LSU. He goes back to LSU, has a Heisman Trophy type season, just blows up. Unbelievable numbers. That's why they gave him the Heisman. I'm not sure that Michael Penix shouldn't have probably won the Heisman based on how his team did, because I will say it was one of the quieter Heisman Trophy winners that we've had, with like 3 losses. But again, the Lamar Jackson comps again, like Lamar Jackson lost 3 games and won the Heisman Trophy because he was just so electric with his legs. And Jacob, you tell me, is that why you have him as your second, because just that rushing upside is so high?
Yeah, his ceiling is arguably higher than anybody else's in the draft class, and I think when you're playing fantasy football, the ceiling is almost more important than anything else. And what you can get from his rushing upside, you're not going to find with any other quarterback in this class. What people might be able to relate to with him, to put his LSU numbers into perspective, is all those Joe Burrow records when he was winning the Heisman and won the national championship. Most of those records were broken by Jaden Daniels last year.
Yeah,
he was incredible. And his QBR was actually the highest we've seen since 2010. So he put up really good numbers. He was really strong throwing the football. He can make all the throws you want to see. And then when he starts moving, it's awesome. To go along with his size, though, he does put himself in bad situations. There's some highlights you can watch from him just diving over the middle of the pile and just getting smashed by people. And he's 6'4", and like you said, he's listed at 210. But I don't buy it either. But he puts his body out there, and it's not good for the frame that he has. He's going to have to learn how to slide, and at that kind of height and size, it's going to be something difficult that he's just going to have to learn. But he's exciting. He's a really exciting prospect. He probably has a lower floor than some of the other quarterbacks because he's got some inconsistencies throwing the football. His motion tends to just change depending on where he's at and who he's throwing to. So he's got some inconsistencies with just footwork and how he's throwing the football. But the upside's there, and the upside's what I care about the most with these quarterbacks, and I'm all in on Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, he's another guy that's just played a ton of football.
Yeah,
if you just look at the amount of games that he's played, and so he's going to come in more ready for the stuff right in his face right away than those first 2 guys as well. So there's a case for that as well. A little older, obviously, but yeah, it's hard to find holes in his season. The season that he had was unbelievable. And I think he's, a more polished thrower than Lamar was coming out at this time,
Yeah.
I think, but I do agree with you. I saw the same inconsistencies with kind of arm and everything else. We have seen, Brian Kelly, he's a great QB developer. And it really, really, really paid off. I can't say it enough for him to go back and do another season at LSU, because that has moved him up into that. Maybe he goes number 2. It's going to depend on kind of what the Commanders want to do, I think, because it's hard to go wrong with either of those guys. It's more, what you like.
Lamar Jackson left a mark. Teams don't want to make that mistake again. They
Yeah.
saw it once, and it's something they can't unsee. And you see those sparks from Jaden Daniels that are like, oh, look at that. We can't
Copycat,
pass up on that guy.
copycat league for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned it a little bit. He won the Heisman, but let me take you down a memory lane a little bit, gentlemen, with this Heisman winners. Here's a few for you, a few recent Heisman winners, and tell me where you think he kind of falls in this range. Call this like a spectrum, all right, of 10 guys. I can't count that high. It's roughly 10 guys. Tell me where you think he closely falls to, all right? Here's some Heisman winners. Johnny Manziel, Sam Bradford, Robert Griffin III, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton. On a scale of Manziel to Burrow or Cam, whatever you want to have there, where does Jaden Daniels fall for you in terms of NFL prospects?
Well, the other part that's really interesting is I almost did a Robert Griffin III comp because they're very similar players and like what they did in college and everything else. And people forget RG3, wasn't he like the rookie of the year? Like he looked really good initially, but he just put himself in bad situations and he got beat up too much. So that's where, you hope he goes to a system where they kind of force him to stay within the system. And if you get out of there, protect your body because you don't want an RG3 situation. But that is actually one of the comps that I was really leaning towards with Jaden Daniels as well.
Yeah, Jacob, any concerns? I mean, 2 first-round wide receivers might come out of LSU this year. You think there might be some concerns with that? Maybe he was being elevated?
No, I don't think so because it's the mobility that he has that just separates him from the other guys, and I don't have any problem with him being able to throw to NFL receivers. He's going to go do that in the NFL, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he had lots of practice doing it at LSU.
Yeah.
And man, dude, again, just jersey tests. Those LSU jerseys are so nice.
They are.
They're
They can work on that helmet, though. That helmet's not so good, though.
But I just hate Brian Kelly.
Amen.
He had to
Amen.
bring his
that
name
makes
up.
sense. That makes sense.
Roll Irish. They got Freeman, though, right? They're fine. They're fine. But
all right, Andrew, where are you going next year? Because I'm curious to who you got as you would like to talk as your 4th quarterback.
Well, so I pulled this straight off of the consensus that Steve put out there, which is consensus between you guys and whatever Steve went rogue for. So this is directly off our post. But our next guy I'm going to pop up here is, you mentioned old guys that have been around the block. There ain't no one who's been around the block more than our next guy here, Mr. Michael Penix Jr. He's been around the block, saw himself in the national title game, not looking so hot. I've got concerns about Mr. Penix, even though he put up some ludicrous numbers. Let me flash those real quick because, geez, these last 2 years at Washington, 4,600 yards, 4,900 yards, 31 touchdowns. I can't read that little number. 38 touchdowns, barely double-digit picks. Are you guys concerned with this guy? I mean, he's ancient.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where we've talked about this on some other pods that how concerned are we with age now? Because we have to adjust the way we look at age because of NIL. There's guys that are returning to school that are high draft picks, and Michael Penix played 6 years of college football. So there's your example of this could look a lot different. He did blow his ACL out twice and then had another season-ending shoulder injury, I believe. I listened to Joel Klatt. He has a really great podcast, and he thought he made a really, really solid case that Michael Penix Jr. should have won the Heisman Trophy. He was the most impressive single player probably of the entire year playing on a playoff team, where Jaden Daniels was the most impressive player playing on a team that lost a few games. Michael Penix didn't lose any games until that final game, to championship game to Michigan, who I think was really a team of destiny. So really, really impressive season, really, really polished player because of how long he's played. The injury history is a little bit of a concern. He's more mobile than you think. He doesn't actually use it as much as these other guys. But when he was younger and at Indiana, another transfer quarterback, he started his career at Indiana. That's actually where he met Kalen DeBoer, who's now the head coach at Alabama, which is crazy to think about. But he was the offensive coordinator at Indiana, and that's where they developed a relationship. And he's a really, really good player. His arm angle's funny. It comes out kind of sidearm, and then when you add left-handed to it, it's almost like a Phillip Rivers thing where it's like javelin throw or something.
It's so gross.
So it's a weird arm angle, but very, very, very accurate. And I'm not sure there's anything more important in the NFL at the end of the day than being accurate. If you can
No,
put
I
the
need
ball
the
in a tight
throwing
window.
motion to look good. That's a requirement. This should be illegal the way he throws the football.
So awesome season, some injury concerns. I don't know if he would be my fourth guy. These next few guys are all very tight. This next tier, it's kind of a new tier we're in. So, Jacob, what do you think?
I'm a fan of Michael Penix. There's a fun tidbit I want to throw out there, and it relates to Bo Nix too, because Michael Penix and Bo Nix are both going to be 24 when they're drafted into the NFL here in a couple months. But there's 3 quarterbacks in the past couple decades that have had success at the one being drafted at the age of 24 or older. Funny enough, they were all drafted as Bengals. So Carson Palmer's one of them, which fantasy success, some. Andy Dalton's the other one, and then Joe Burrow's the most recent. And then a couple of those guys went first. Penix is obviously not going to go first overall, but the age thing, Jesse, you kind of alluded to it. It's different now with the way NIL is paying these guys, but it's a bit of a concern, and especially with Penix, with all the injuries that he's racked up. There's durability issues with him. He was banged up in the title game against Michigan, and he was having trouble just staying on his feet. But if he can stay healthy, and if he can go to a team that'll benefit his skill set, I think he has a bright future, because he can throw the ball. It doesn't look pretty. It's almost kind of Tua-esque how it doesn't look pretty. And whatever team drafts him is going to have to adjust to that. Left-handed quarterbacks have different tendencies, and they slide different ways, and you have to call plays differently for that player. It'll be an adjustment for whatever team drafts him. But he's another guy that was thrown to NFL caliber wide receivers, to really high profile ones. He can make all the throws you want to see. He's extremely accurate, really fun to watch. And like Jesse mentioned, he's got some mobility to him too.
I think even you could go 3 deep with the wide receivers. I think they're going to have 3 guys go in the top 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, McMillan, Polk, Odunze. The note I wrote down here for Michael Penix that I loved and cracked myself up writing is, when you're playing Madden and you're playing and you just always bullet pass every single time, that's Penix. It's going where it's supposed to, but it's on a laser. And it doesn't look like it should be, because, again, it looks like he breaks his shoulder every single time he throws it. So I'm convinced it's what's happening there, because he throws some bullets, man. But yeah, if you guys pay attention to the show sheet, you mentioned, Jesse, this is a tier down here. I put in, italics right next to them, that's their consensus big board rank off of a great website. I'll plug it, NFL Mock Draft Database. Really awesome. Collects all these mock drafts that people mention, puts them in one spot, averages them out. And we had Caleb Williams go at 1. We had Drake May is the consensus number 2 overall. Jaden Daniels is number 5 overall. And then, as you said, we dropped down to Penix. We're at 26th overall. Now, gut tells me one of these guys is going to jump up. Someone stupid is going to go, jump for a quarterback. I'm looking at you, Falcons, and probably take someone earlier than they should. But yeah, but I'll ask you that. Actually, no, we'll get to that later. So another guy who I think could end up going a little bit higher than people expect, and he's got some love. He's got some followers. This dude could be a cult leader. All right. I am fully convinced. JJ McCarthy, Michigan, national title winner from Michigan. Is he the next Tom Brady, Jesse?
Different player than Tom Brady. He's really good. There's been some hate thrown his way. I've seen people that just think he's going to be like garbage at the next level. I don't know why. He was banged up this year. That's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. And the other thing that people forget is when JJ McCarthy was a true freshman, he was the change of pace guy. They would bring him in to run the ball. He's a really good athlete, very underrated in that area. And again, I think this is starting to speak to the strength of this class and the fact that there could be, if we're talking about this website that's using all these consensus mock drafts and everything else, this is 6 guys going in the first round. That's crazy. That's not normal to have 6 first-round quarterbacks. So
Oh, I've got a note on that later.
I think he's first-round talent, and I think he made the right decision to come out. I think him and Jim Harbaugh talked, and I'm sure Harbaugh was like, "Dude, I'm moving on. I'm sick of this college stuff. Let's go out on top." Yeah, no, if he goes to a good situation, he's got all the tools. He's got the right stuff between the ears. Yeah, maybe a little bit long throwing motion compared to some of these other guys that are a little tighter in the throwing motion, but I don't know. I don't know why people keep trying to poke holes in his game. I think he's a very, very solid, going to be a starting NFL quarterback personally.
Well, Jesse, I might have an answer to that. And Jacob, I'm going to make you answer this question. Take a look at a picture of JJ McCarthy. Face test. Does he look too much like Zach Wilson? And that might be on the football field too. It's all I'm saying.
Casey, I need to phone a friend. Casey, because that is a concern. But yeah, no, he's America's darling right now after winning the championship. Jake? What do you think about McCarthy?
Zach Wilson?
I don't think he's Zach Wilson. I think he's better than that. That would be rude to compare him to Zach Wilson.
Just look at the face. I mean, that is a Zach Wilson looking face. It's a very punchable face. Love you, JJ. You'd kick my butt. That's a punchable face.
I mean, I just want to throw in one thing. We're 5 quarterbacks deep, and let's call it the Zach Wilson, Mason Dixon line. We haven't reached it yet. And Zach Wilson, what did he go? Did he go number 2 or something?
Number 2.
Yep.
You know, we got 5. We're 5 guys deep. All these guys are better than him. Let's just make sure that we're aware of that. So
they are. Yep, 100%. I'm not super excited about him from a fantasy perspective, but I do agree that he's going to go into the NFL in the first round. He is going to start for a team. And if that team has good pieces around them, he can be successful. He's going to go late in the first round, and that's probably going to benefit that landing spot for him. So he's going to see success, but from a fantasy perspective, that's where I'm having trouble getting excited about him. He wasn't asked to do a whole lot at Michigan. It is a run-heavy offense that they have there, but when he was asked to perform and throw the ball, he definitely can. He can make the throws that you want to see. He's a very accurate passer. He's got a really strong arm. The only knock really is that he just wasn't asked to do a whole lot. And that's not to any fault of him. It's just the way they ran things at Michigan. Landing spot's going to be very important for him. I do like that he has some sneaky mobility, but he's not going to be that run first type guy that you want to see for fantasy football.
No, and he does have those legs. And again, watching him, I'm like, man, you missed that. Like, how did you miss that? And then he'll make some crazy throw on the outside and show mobility. I'm like, oh, I'm back in. And then he'll do another stupid thing. I'm like, how did you miss the wide open guy over there? What are you looking at? And I was watching Michigan State film. And Jesse, Jacob, Michigan State is awful, dreadful. That's the get right team. And I'm like, how are you missing guys against these dudes? But then the next play, the mistake he just made by like not waiting for the dig to come on the backside, he'll then make it. I'm like, what? Is someone in your headset now telling you like, hey, you missed it last time? And he just randomly goes in and out of doing the right thing, not doing the right thing. And it just reminds me again, that punchable face is a young face. Compared to the other guys, I'll throw that age back up there. He's a fetus. He's 21. Those other guys you said are going to come in at 24. So it just makes some sense, I think, with some of this development.
Yeah, and I think you got to be patient. I think he's, that's the thing you have to start understanding with some of these guys coming in. You don't have to be patient with a guy that played 6 years of college football. He better come in and be productive. But a guy, JJ McCarthy didn't start as a freshman. It was Cade McNamara, and like I said, he was the change of pace. So while Bo Nix and Michael Penix have 6 years of starting college experience, he only has 2. So you got to be patient with him a little bit. And hopefully he goes to a team with a good system. If he goes to the Falcons, like hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson. Here's a interesting concept. Maybe that helps him out.
Yeah, and if we're talking Zach Wilson-esque punchable faces, go join another one at the end of the first round, gentlemen. What do you think of this? JJ McCarthy, go sit behind the other punchable face, blonde-looking dude, Jared Goff, for a year in Detroit. Develop. Let Ben Johnson just get those good vibes in you and dominate in a Jordan Love-esque situation later on. What do you guys think of that? JJ McCarthy, Detroit, you in?
I told you not to draft Hendon Hooker. That's all I have to say about that. And I was right.
Do they even know what they have there?
With Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, I don't think they know. Wasn't available this year. So
No, he
did
got
they
some
just throw that
practices in
draft
at the
pick away
end.
already.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm
You
telling
might have to with a guy like McCarthy because he's definitely someone that could sit behind golf for a year and then come in and take over.
Yeah, or like Vikings. You know, the Vikings are a really interesting team.
Ooh.
Where do they go? What do they do?
Picking
know,
too high.
We'll see what happens, but just something to think about with all these next three guys. It's like Vikings, Broncos, Falcons, Saints. You know, these teams are all looking at maybe moving forward with something else. If JJ sat behind Derek Carr, you know, became a Saint later on. I don't know. Let's see what happens. All right, what else we got? We got who else we got left?
We got one more guy we definitely have to talk about. We definitely have to cover. And then we got our mess of other guys we can mention if we want. But a dude I liked, I texted you guys in group chat. Again, another punchable face, but a little bit older of a face. One Bo Nix, Oregon quarterback. I don't know. Jesse, tell me. I liked what I saw. Wasn't completely super athletic. Wasn't blowing me away, but running an offense, dang, he did it.
He had an amazing career. Went to Auburn, started the first game, first day as a freshman there. His dad played at Auburn, so there was a lot of pressure for him to be really great. And he had some highlights there. He did some great things, and then he decided to move on. And everybody thought, you know, okay, cool, go play your final season up in Oregon. He had a really great season. And then I was kind of trying to figure out where he would be drafted. And then he went back and played a whole nother season. And, you know, ended up, I can't remember, he must have finished like 4th or 5th in the Heisman. So yeah, 5 seasons as a starter, which is just not something you see. Took advantage of the COVID season. He broke the record for the most games started by a quarterback in NCAA football. So he is literally, if you have experience on your metrics, he's the most experienced college quarterback ever. My comp is Drew Brees, but with more athleticism. I think he's kind of like JJ McCarthy. They didn't ask him to use his legs. When he was at Auburn, he had to use his legs. He ran all over the place because they were terrible. So he is a really good athlete, and that shouldn't be slept on. But yeah, I want the Broncos to take him in the middle of the first round. That's how much I like Bo Nix. I would be very excited about that as a Broncos fan. I think he's going to be really good. He doesn't have the injury history of Michael Penix Jr., but then has all of the similar athletic upside, similar amount of starting potential. Really quick release, throws over the top. It's tough to find a hole. I called him Johnny Manziel years ago, like when he was a kid, and everybody, like Steven was like, I don't know, that's not a good comp, but we got to remember that between the ears is what cost Johnny Manziel, not like what he did on the field. Bo Nix is actually really athletic, so he could find a way to get rushing yards as well.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, what do you think?
Look at that 2023 year, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Woo!
Absurd. So he's definitely shown it. And like you've said, he's got tons of experience. He does come in at that 24-year-old age mark, but it's just different now. I love the arm. I love the rushing upside. The holes to poke in his game are kind of funky. He does get a little jittery when he's under pressure. And then there's a note that I found and saw from a couple different draft spots, but he has a heavy reliance on like sideline cues. So he's looking, if you're watching him when he's playing, he's looking over to the sidelines a lot before he's making a call. So he might struggle with just learning an NFL offense independently when he's moving to that next level. You got to think that's something he was getting acclimated with as he was learning in his 18 years in college. But he's got weird holes to poke. He's not got any limitations with his arm. He doesn't have any limitations with rushing. He's going to be great. I think I'd put him at 4 personally. I think he's a little bit better than Michael Penix, but we'll see where he lands. Where he goes is going to matter a lot.
Yeah, for me, outside of the guys at the top 3 there, he was my guy. Jesse, what were we going to say there?
I was just going to agree with Jacob. He's my 4.
Yeah, I think we're big fanboying over Bo Nix, and it's again hard not to. Look at that face. There's some good looking dudes coming out of this draft. This is face test heavy, and that must be known. I comped him to a guy that you just started describing, Jesse, a little bit earlier in your take there. Dak Prescott. Drew Brees, a little more athletic. This dude just puts the ball where it's supposed to, when he's supposed to be there, and it is nice. You see him, he's got his eyes on the safety. He shows he's a 5-year starter. That safety goes that way, I know I'm throwing the other way. Like, he is in every way the opposite of Caleb Williams. Bo Nix, he's athletic. Like, he's not a statue, but like, he's not that exciting. There is not a lot of, whoa, how on earth did you do that? But there's so much, he did it the right thing. He did the right thing. And that's why he's PFF's #1 graded passer on the year. There's just so much to like there. And I think your guy, Sean Payton, would go absolutely crazy for him in Denver. I think he just wants a guy that's going to throw it exactly where he's supposed to. But if you guys have no more thoughts on Bo Nix, here's what I want to do to end off talking about these top 6. And then I'm going to make you guys have a take on the guys we have at 7, 8, 9, and 10. But draft classes with 5 QBs in the first round. And as you've noted, there are 6 guys that are potentially going to go in this first round based on mock drafts. All right. So here's 2 other recent draft classes that had 5 QBs go. All right. Let me know what you think afterwards. So 2018, we had Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Lamar go off the board. A lot of mixed bag there. 2021, you spoke to this a little earlier. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. That's like 50-50 on these guys going first round. So if you guys had to say one of these top 6 guys are busting, who is it? I'll start with you, Jacob.
Oh boy, right on the spot.
Take your stance.
Whichever one gets drafted last. No. I think it's hard to say because I have JJ McCarthy at 6, but I think he doesn't have a high ceiling, but he also has a really high floor. So it's hard to say that he's going to bust. I guess I'd say Michael Penix just because the durability concerns they're there, and he's an older guy. So if someone's going to bust, I guess I lean towards Michael Penix.
I'd agree. Michael Penix would be my most likely to bust. I think Jaden Daniels for durability. He's a high floor. Low floor, high ceiling. Like just the total amount of outcomes with Jaden Daniels. Very similar to how I felt about Lamar Jackson coming out. I was like, this guy could be really great or be a total failure, and that's why he went a little later in the first round. That ended up working out for him because he went to a great organization and they found a way to use him. The other thing that's interesting when you look at those draft classes is like the first guy taken, I think Baker Mayfield, it didn't work out in Cleveland, obviously, but like he's not like a total bust. Trevor Lawrence,
good quarterback,
not a total bust. That Sam Darnold, Wilson, Trey Lance, Josh Rosen area, like that area is kind of interesting, is these guys that don't go 1 or 2 but fall to really bad teams still. So that makes me nervous for Jaden Daniels. Or if Drake May doesn't go number 2 and falls down a little further and is on a bad team, maybe that hurts him. But I'll tell you, just from looking at 2018 and 2021, total, I'm like not playing the hindsight game. I loved Baker, didn't like Darnold. I had no idea who Allen even was. Like he literally wasn't on my radar. I thought Josh Rosen was terrible. I told everybody I have no idea why this guy's here. And Lamar Jackson was the biggest freak I've ever seen. So I was like, I don't know what's going to happen at the next level. Loved Trevor Lawrence, hated Zach Wilson. I loved Trey Lance. He literally threw 1 interception, I think, in college, but he was playing at a lower level. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge Justin Fields truther. I think it's really interesting to see what happens. And I did not like Mac Jones as an NFL quarterback. So pretty close, right? On like where we thought they were, who we thought they were. The Josh Allen thing's not fair. I mean, the guy had no offers coming out. I'm sure you guys have seen the commercials and everything else. Literally no offers. He's just like sending emails to every Division I program, and Wyoming of all places takes him. I watched him in the bowl game and was like, okay, he looks amazing, but like if he has one great bowl game, is he now going to be a great NFL quarterback? So that one was hard to vouch for. So I kind of missed on him, but the rest of these guys, they kind of were who I thought they were. And I'm telling you, even let's talk about Sam Hartman. I think Sam Hartman could be a starting NFL quarterback. And we just never get 7 QBs deep. That's just not normal when you're talking about starting NFL quarterbacks. So
Yeah, I'm with you there. If I had to take a stab at one, I think I fall right in line with you guys. If I have to take a stab at one of the top 3 busting, absolutely Jaden Daniels. And I know that's not a hot take, but like I'm actually really worried about Jaden Daniels. I think it's very similar to Josh Allen in that so much talent, but so raw. The difference is Jaden Daniels ain't 200 pounds, ain't 210 pounds like it says he is. That dude's going to get hurt. I don't think he's going to be able to do what he did at the level that made him play, the chaos, the running. He can't do that like Josh Allen just could. And I'm right with you guys. Michael Penix, dude, you are less mobile, less instinctive to run than my grandfather on an icy road in the middle of December. So I just don't think that's going to succeed in the NFL anymore. But who knows? He'll probably be the next Tom Brady or something. I'm just a guy.
Michael Penix is more athletic than you think. Like they did not use him in that way. But I'm telling you, when he was younger, he was 85 speed on the NCAA football. He's good. He's an athletic guy. But Sam Hartman, I mean, I want to hear from Jacob to start Sam Hartman because I think he's worth talking about, even though we're 7 deep.
I think my beloved Fighting Irish did him a little bit dirty in his last year.
I agree.
It's another guy that transferred. Wake Forest, he slung the ball a lot. And he came to Notre Dame where it's a pro-style offense and they run the ball heavy. And they had a first-year offense coordinator that is no longer the offense coordinator at Notre Dame. He actually moved on and got a head coaching job at some low-level school. So he dealt with a lot of nuances at Notre Dame. There was a lot going on there. Where he succeeds a lot is in play action. When they ran play action and it was against man coverage specifically, there was always someone he was finding, and he's got a great deep ball. He's got an accurate throwing motion. He's good. He's got good arm strength, not elite. He's not really a mobile guy. He can move a little bit, I guess, if you want him to, but that last year at Notre Dame is going to kind of sting for his draft stock. I think it's another guy with a ton of experience. Starting in the NFL, Jesse, I don't know if I'm with you. I guess it depends on where he ends up, but he's definitely not going to be a year 1 starter. I see him more as a backup for at least a couple years, but it'll be interesting to see where he lands in the middle round of the draft.
So he's Kirk Cousins is my comp, and I could see a similar
that's fair
NFL career, So maybe what you do, because this is what the Redskins did back in the day, the Washington R words, is they took RG3, and then they took Kirk Cousins way later in the draft. So let's go ahead, Washington Commanders. Let's just do it again. Let's take Jaden Daniels, and then way later in the draft, you can go take Sam Hartman for when Jaden Daniels blows up, because
just the polar opposite guy, complete opposite guy.
He's Kirk Cousins.
And how about that face win?
Face test. Casey would say we're getting a little close to the sun.
Oh, we're on the sun. This dude.
You still got that Wake Forest picture, Andrew?
I can throw it up there. It's a little grainy, but
man, look at this guy. Yeah, it's Jimmy Garoppolo-esque for sure. He's way too close to the sun. I've loved this kid. Talk about I loved her first. Like they have this show called QB1 on Netflix. If you've never watched it, it's freaking amazing. You can get insight into who Justin Fields was as a kid, who Sam Hartman was as a kid. High character guy. He's moved all around. Every time he goes into a situation, he wins that locker room. And just to do what he did at Wake Forest, people don't understand how bad that school has been for so long. And for him to stay there and keep making them better and put them in a situation to play in the ACC championship one year, that, it's just not, I don't think we're going to see that happen again. He had to run this crazy slow mesh offense where he's just standing there with guys barreling down on him, and he would just stand in and he's a guy that throws it in the bucket. It's the deep ball. And I just think, he's going to impress somebody along the way. And like Jacob said, maybe it's not this first year, but I would keep an eye on him wherever he goes. If he goes somewhere with an aging veteran or a guy that gets, hurt every season, I would not be surprised to see kind of this Brock Purdy, who's Sam Hartman? I never even heard of this guy. And it's no, he's really, really good. And he played a lot of games. And if he goes to a great situation, I think he could earn a number 2 spot and work his way into a starting lineup if a guy gets hurt or something else, and then not give it up. He's that kind of player.
He's almost the exact same size as Brock Purdy. Few
Ooh,
pounds lighter, same height.
I could absolutely see it.
And he is someone
and
that's
he's
going to
a
get
little
overlooked
bit-
in the draft process for sure.
And he's a little bit more athletic than you think. Like, he's not as statuesque as Kirk Cousins.
He's
quite.
got a short stride, though. It is funny to watch him take off.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is so likable. They're blowing out somebody. I forgot who it was, and the backup comes in for Notre Dame, and I don't know if you saw this, Jacob. Sam Hartman's
I
on the
saw 'em all.
sideline calling plays. Like
Yeah.
it's all these crazy hand signals. Like I don't even know. Like they're just doing a little dance on the sideline.
Yeah.
And to keep this PG, Sam Hartman looks like he's calling it a play, and the camera pans over to him perfectly to really capture his face. He's over here churning butter on the side. I'll just say, and he's twisting in light bulbs. I'll just imagine what your hands are doing with those motions. It was phenomenal. You can't not love the dude. I could totally see him being the guy who's like Jake Browning in like 3 years. Or Kirk Cousins come out of nowhere. So let me ask you this. All right, because I have the power and I've trapped you guys. A couple more questions. All right. From this bottom tier guys. All right, since we're just talking about them, I tell you, in the future, you look down the road, who is the next? We won't even go crazy. Who's the next Sam Howell, Aiden O'Connell? Who's a guy who gets taken day 2 at the earliest, day 3, like 3 to 6th round, and they come in and they start, and you're like, wow, that's not a starter, but that dude didn't suck, and he could be useful in fantasy.
So with the names on our list, we still got Joe Milton, Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis. We don't have Michael Pratt from Tulane. He just recently declared. He's a very interesting player because he's another guy that came in and became the starter instantly at Tulane and kind of helped turn that program around. So I like those kind of guys as like long shots. Aiden O'Connell, you know, he's a really great example of a guy that really made his program better, elevated the program. If you're talking about talent, Spencer Rattler was the guy always. He won the Elite 11 camp. He was the starting quarterback at Oklahoma right away. And he got beat out, and everybody's like, this guy's garbage. Who'd he get beat out by? Caleb Williams, maybe the best quarterback that we've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, he got beat out by a really, really good player. He went to a difficult situation at South Carolina. That is a tough school to win at. Your schedule is murderer's row every week. He's not the hugest guy, but he can. The thing that they always said about Spencer Rattler from the time he was 18, this kid can spin it. And he's going to make NFL throws right out the gate. And really athletic kid. Another kid off the QB1. If you want to see what he's like as a high school kid, you could watch it there. Everybody is going to get really excited about Joe Milton when he shows up at the combine because he's going to look like Anthony Richardson, but he's garbage. Don't fall for it. And then I think Jordan Travis was a product of his system. And after blowing out his knee, that lowers his quality of his opportunity even more. I was never a Jordan Travis guy. I just don't think we see him. So really for me, you know, if we're not talking Sam Hartman, Spencer Rattler and Michael Pratt from Tulane are the two guys that like keep an eye out for them. See where they go, you know, and see how buried they are in a depth chart. But they were very, very good players, athletic. They could have some fantasy upside if they do get into a game. But yeah, I think Joe Milton and Jordan Travis's careers are over. But that's just I've been wrong before too.
Yeah, if I had to cast my lot somewhere, it probably was Spencer Rattler as well. I heard Jim Nagy in an interview. That's the guy who's running the Senior Bowl, gets to pick who's there, who's not, makes all those decisions. And he was saying, like, of all the guys that every year the media overhypes certain guys that the NFL is like, what on earth are they doing? And the NFL or the media will totally like miss guys that the NFL is super high on that we don't find out till like draft day. And Jim Nagy's saying early, Spencer Rattler is that dude who the NFL is super interested in, who the media is not talking about at all. And I don't know. I don't think he's having a great day at the Senior Bowl. It's hard the first day for QBs. That's kicking off right now. Well, not quite literally, but like practices and such. But yeah, I'd probably say Spencer Rattler out of this mix of guys. He just had the pedigree. Like you said, just got beat up by like a Caleb Williams guy. Jacob, Who's your shot in the dark? And then we'll get to you one more question and out of here.
I don't want to continue the trend, but it's Rattler for me too, because he's the most mobile of this latter half of quarterbacks that are kind of sleeping out there that people aren't really paying attention to now. And I think a lot of that is because this class has so much talent at the top that these later guys like the Hartmans and the Rattlers are just going to be overlooked just naturally. But it's someone that could even be a day 2, maybe early day 3 guy. Not going to start out of the gate probably, but he's got a special arm and he can move. And for fantasy purposes, that's intriguing to me. You could take a shot on him late in your 4th round in drafts, probably steal him so he doesn't go to waivers, or that's the kind of guy I'm looking for just upside.
Yeah, totally. I think we're all kind of in agreement there. And let me ask you one more question about these big, important guys that we all think really have a lot of demand in this upcoming draft. You can't pick Williams, May, or Jaden Daniels. That 4th guy, plant your flag. Who is a dude who when you get him in your rookie draft at like 1-2 turn, you're like, man, actually, this is probably going to be a starting quarterback I can have for years to come. So who's one of those? Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix. Which one is your 4th guy you really feel good about? Start with you, Jesse.
I'm going Bo Nix if I had to plant my flag. I do think that JJ McCarthy, if he gets in the right system, if he's given the opportunity to like develop, maybe he's behind a guy or something else, could have a very long NFL career. I think Bo Nix is just the exciting one, right? It's that he's going to be ready to go right away. The rushing upside, the Russell Wilson kind of makes something happen young, early in his career and stand out. Like, I think he could do that kind of stuff. So that's where I would go.
Jacob, what about you?
I would agree. Let me frame it this way. So there's a list of teams that I think are absolutely 100% taking a quarterback, and they are probably taking one in the 1st round. And of those kind of middle round teams that are probably taking a quarterback, where do you want Bo Nix to go? And Denver can't be the answer.
Ooh.
Oh, you want me to? Okay, hold on. I got to go to Tankathon.
Okay, so you have the Raiders that are definitely going to take a quarterback, I think.
Please don't. Yeah, not him, please.
Yeah. You have the Saints that could potentially take a quarterback to start moving forward.
Ooh, with Olave, that could be nice. I like me some Olave.
And Denver's right there too. And all those 3 teams are back to back to back. So Denver makes a ton of sense. Minnesota's right there before them.
I mean, the Vikings is super intriguing because you talk about having weapons and everything else, and then that's my 2nd favorite team. So let's go to one of my 2 favorite teams, the Vikings or the Broncos. I mean, the Raiders wouldn't be terrible either. And then, like, I think JJ McCarthy to the Saints, like something like that, where you have maybe a bridge, like that makes more sense. I think it would be sad if we had to watch Bo Nix like sit behind somebody for a long time.
Yeah.
Seattle is interesting. Like, do they really believe in Geno? Like, that's another one that I've seen come up a lot more than you think. It's also that early second, that like kind of early second area that's interesting, because it's like, what if these guys don't get drafted in the 1st round? Or, it's because all those teams at the end of the 1st round don't need a quarterback, right? So is there somebody early in the 2nd that's jumping up to get that? Isn't that what happened with Lamar? Get that 5th-year option, jump up and grab somebody. I could see that happening too. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. And Will Levis, there's another guy that, like, I wasn't a Will Levis believer. I just didn't think it would happen. And then we watched him fall and fall and fall and fall. I don't think you're going to see that this year. It's going to go quarterback, Marvin Harrison Jr. You can kind of put that into the bank. If the new guy in New England skips on quarterback, I would be shocked. I mean, they have to, right? It almost in some ways would make more sense for Drake May to go to New England. It just feels like a fit.
Yeah.
For he's kind of more what they've had in the past.
New England.
Yeah, it just feels like a very New England move. But yeah, no, we'll see. I think all of that is pretty fascinating. Minnesota, Denver, Las Vegas, New Orleans, even Seattle.
I think it'll be fascinating to see if one of those top 6 do fall to round 2. Carolina sitting there, that 1st pick in the 2nd round.
Do it.
If they hedge their bet on Bryce Young and they take one of those guys, that would be an interesting one. That'd
Start the drama. Talk about
Also-
your Kirk Cousins story here. Sam Hartman will sit behind Bryce Young and take the spot and lead the team for years to go. There it is. We've connected it all.
Also, how about if Tampa does let Baker walk, how about Bo Nix to Tampa Bay at 26? I mean, that would be a situation where you have a decent team, a good organization. He could play really well in a situation like that if they do let him walk. So, and then the Rams, I think the Rams is also interesting.
I would love that one.
Maybe that's a Sam Hartman thing later in the draft. You watch who the Rams take later in the draft, and the Rams take Spencer Rattler or Sam Hartman later. It's like, that's kind of interesting because Stafford's wife keeps telling him to retire. I don't know if you guys have seen this. She's online. She's over it.
Especially if they get him in the 5th round. That's their sweet spot.
That's true.
Yep.
Rams and 5th round picks.
There you go.
That'd get me excited.
Yeah. We're
All
gonna
right,
have
guys.
a pod here coming up where we just make sweet spot landing spots or dreams.
I love it. Well, Andrew, you crushed it, buddy. Thank you for taking on the role of host today. I think we'll keep this format going. If we want to add in Casey or Steven in the future, I don't know. It's going to be hard because we just did so well. It's like, maybe we just stick with this. This is our rookie offseason team right now because Andrew is asking all the right questions and Jacob and Jesse got all the right answers. So that's it for tonight. Make sure you tune in next week. We'll jump into running backs. How about that, boys?
I'm ready.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. If you want to contact us directly through social media, I am at Devi Rookie Watch. Jacob, where can we find you?
At FG Rhodes FF.
And Andrew?
At Slam Your Keyboard FG or Toys Your FG.
All right. For Andrew, Jacob, and myself, thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, the best way to help us out is to refer a friend, rate, review, and subscribe. And yeah, we'll catch you all next week. Break down some running backs.
We out of here.
Peace.